Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to our witnesses today, thank you so much for being here. This has been extraordinarily interesting, frightening, but I believe the way that we prepare ourselves for the threats that exist is by facing them head on. So I truly appreciate your honest assessments and the information you shared. I also am thankful that the chair and the ranking member included the term deterrence in the title of today's hearing, because, frankly, the best defense against future bio threats is our ability to quickly mitigate the spread of them and the effects of any biological agent. And a critical part of any biosecurity deterrence strategy is to ensure that the United States has the manufacturing capacity to quickly ramp up our production of necessary medical countermeasures in the event of an emergency. And I'm sure all of our witnesses know active pharmaceutical ingredients are the base ingredients for producing essential generic medicines, but unfortunately, 87% of the facilities that produce APIs are overseas. Our healthcare system suffers routine shortages, even outside of emergencies, and our reliance on foreign suppliers really jeopardizes our ability to keep Americans healthy. For example, the US has lost the capacity to produce penicillin here at home. That should be kind of a flashing warning sign to those who are focused on how prepared we may be into the future to ultimately deter or respond to future biosecurity threats or even supply chain challenges. I introduced a bill called the Prepare Act. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation to identify the essential generic medicines that are necessary for us to have as a nation available at all times, and to authorize the creation of a stockpile of active pharmaceutical ingredients so that we can ensure that our pharmaceutical supply chain is always able to produce the essential medicines that we need in the event of an emergency. Certainly my district in Central Virginia is leading the way in ensuring robust domestic supply of essential medicines, which is why I'm so focused on this issue. The Bipartisan Prepare Act would provide statutory authorization for this important federal effort and would create thousands of well-paid jobs, improve patients' access to medicines, and bolster our national biosecurity. And all of this kind of preface leads me to my question, either for Mr. Weber or for Dr. Adalia. How does strengthening the domestic production capacity of essential medicines and other medical countermeasures improve our nation's ability to deter biosecurity threats? Again, assuming you agree with that assertion, if you could comment on that.
Yes. Thank you for your leadership in this area. It's very important, and I'll just give you one example. Smallpox. We vaccinate our forces against smallpox. We have a stockpile of enough for every American in our strategic national stockpile. And I think just that fact is deterrence. It tells our adversaries that smallpox would not be successful as a weapon against the United States and its citizens. So that kind of preparedness, deterrence by having those capacities to respond, I think are key, and onshoring those capabilities here in the United States to surge and rapidly manufacture all of these medical countermeasures is vital to not just public health, but to U.S. national security.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Dr. Daljo, would you add anything to that?
I completely agree. I liken medical countermeasures to almost an anti-ballistic missile defense system, that the more prepared we are for these threats, natural or deliberate, the less likely they are to be used. And I think the smallpox example is a great one. And I think, and I applaud your leadership on the Prepare Act, because I've worked on this issue in the past where we know that there are many active pharmaceutical ingredients that all trace back to one place. And if there is a supply chain disruption, it becomes really disastrous. And I think we need a lot more redundancy when it comes to certain medical countermeasures that should be thought of as part of national security.
So Dr. Adalja, just following up briefly on that point, the World Health Organization maintains the list of essential medicines since I guess at least 2007, but only in 2020 did FDA publish its first list of essential medicines. As new pathogens and biothreats emerge, how can the government identify the essential medicines and medical countermeasures for the threats that exist that we as a nation will want to have to protect our people and our service members?
They'll have to have a lot of clinical read into what's actually effective, what drugs are being used, which ones are in trials, which ones are promising but not yet approved. All of those should be on the radar of people that are trying to figure out how to augment the strategic national stockpile and how to think about what needs to have redundancy in supply chains.
Excellent. Mr. Chairman, I yield back again to our witnesses. Thank you so much for your time today. It's extraordinarily helpful as we think about what Congress's role should be in making sure we're protecting our people.
Great. Thank you.